The weight of my world balanced precariously in plastic bags, cutting into my fingers as I shuffled toward the exit of Marino's grocery. Rain pattered against the storefront windows, turning the early evening sky into a watercolor of grays and blues. 6 months since Ryan's birth. 6 months since his father disappeared with our savings, leaving nothing but a hastily written note and mounting bills. "Come on, baby boy," I whispered to Ryan, who blinked sleepily against my chest in his carrier. "Just a little farther and we'll be home." I'd calculated everything to the penny today. Baby formula, diapers, the cheapest pasta I could find, and one splurge. A chocolate bar I planned to savor over the next week, breaking off tiny pieces each night after Ryan fell asleep. My paycheck from the diner wouldn't arrive for another 3 days. Until then, we'd make do with what I had. The automatic doors parted with a mechanical sigh, releasing me into the damp evening. That's when it happened. My worn sneaker caught on the uneven pavement, sending me lurching forward. I instinctively clutched Ryan tighter to my chest as the grocery bag slipped from my fingers. The sickening sound of glass shattering pierced the air. The pasta sauce I'd debated buying for 10 minutes before deciding we needed something other than butter on our pasta. "No, no, no," I gasped, watching helplessly as apples rolled across the wet pavement, milk pooled around my feet, and diapers scattered like fallen soldiers. Tears welled in my eyes as Ryan began to wail, startled by my sudden movement and the noise. That's when I noticed the car, a sleek black Bentley idling by the curb, its engine purring like a predator. Through the rain, I could make out the silhouette of a man standing beside it watching me. Something about his stillness, the way he observed without moving, sent a shiver down my spine that had nothing to do with the rain soaking through my thin jacket. "It's okay," I murmured to Ryan, rocking him gently as I knelt to salvage what I could. "We're okay." But we weren't. That pasta sauce represented 2 days of meals. The diapers were now soaking up puddle water. "Leave it." The voice slid through the air like smoke, deep and commanding. I froze, my fingers inches from a bruised apple. Slowly, I looked up. He stood over me, sheltered by a large black umbrella held by another man, tall, broad-shouldered, with a scar running along his jawline. But it was not this guard that captured my attention. It was the man before me, rain beaded on his immaculate charcoal suit, each droplet catching light from the store's fluorescent signs. His face seemed carved from stone. Sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw shadowed with precisely maintained stubble, and eyes so intensely blue they seemed to glow in the dim evening light. Young, perhaps early 30s, but with an air of authority that made him seem ageless. I said, "Leave it." He extended a hand toward me, not to help me up, but as a command to stay where I was. I found myself obeying without question as he turned to the guard. "Vito, take care of this." The man called Vito moved with surprising efficiency, snapping his fingers at 2 other men I hadn't noticed before, who emerged from the Bentley. They began collecting my scattered groceries, as the stranger knelt before me, his umbrella now sheltering both of us from the rain. "Are you hurt?" His voice was softer now, but no less commanding. "No," I stammered, clutching Ryan closer. "We're fine." "You don't have to. The child." His eyes, cold as winter, flicked to Ryan, whose cries had subsided to whimpers. "He's okay. Just startled." I tried to stand, but found myself pinned by his gaze. "Your name?" It wasn't a question. It was a demand. "Lily," I whispered. "Lily Winters." Something flickered in his eyes, recognition perhaps, but that was impossible. A man like him would never know someone like me. "And the child?" "Ryan. My son." I added the last part defensively, though I wasn't sure why. He nodded once, then straightened to his full height. "Vito, make sure Ms. Winters gets fresh groceries. Everything she needs." "Wait," I protested, struggling to my feet. "I can't accept." "You can and you will." His tone left no room for argument. "Vito will help you select what you need, and Sergio will drive you home afterward." "But I don't even know who you are," I said, finding a sliver of courage from somewhere. His lips curved into something too controlled to be a smile, but too warm to be a smirk. "Dante Ricci." He said it like I should recognize the name. And some part of me did. whispers at the diner where I worked, conversations that stopped when I approached tables of certain well-dressed men. "Thank you, Mr. Ricci, but I can't." "Can't what?" His voice hardened. "Can't feed your child properly? Can't accept help when you clearly need it?" His eyes narrowed. "Or is there someone at home who would disapprove? The father, perhaps?" The question sliced through me. "There's no one," I admitted, hating how pathetic I sounded. "Ryan's father left before he was born." Something darkened in Dante's expression, a shadow passing over already dangerous waters. "I see." He checked his watch. "Platinum," I guessed, catching the light as he moved. "Vito will take care of everything. I have matters to attend to." Before I could protest again, he turned and walked back to the Bentley, moving with the fluid grace of a man accustomed to being obeyed. The driver opened the door, and just before he slipped inside, Dante looked back at me. "Until we meet again, Lily Winters." It wasn't a question of if, but when. The certainty in his voice should have frightened me. Instead, I felt something else, a dangerous spark of curiosity, of wonder. Who was this man who commanded such respect, who stopped to help a struggling mother in the rain? True to Dante's word, Vito escorted me back into the store. The manager, who had barely looked at me during my careful budget shopping earlier, now practically tripped over himself to assist us. "Anything Ms. Winters wants," Vito instructed, his voice gravelly and accented. "Mr. Ricci's orders." I found myself in a daze, pushing a cart through aisles I had avoided earlier. Vito watched silently as I hesitated over organic baby food. "Take it," he said, "and more. The good formula, too. I can't possibly repay. Mr. Ricci doesn't expect repayment." Something in Vito's tone suggested this was unusual, that Dante Ricci was not a man who gave without expecting something in return. By the time we finished, my cart contained more food than I had bought in the past month. Fresh vegetables, quality meats, snacks I hadn't allowed myself since becoming a mother, and enough baby supplies to last weeks. I felt simultaneous waves of gratitude and shame. Sergio, the driver, loaded the groceries into the Bentley's trunk, while Vito helped secure Ryan's carrier in the back seat. I sat beside my son, feeling utterly out of place in the luxury vehicle, surrounded by leather that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "Address?" Sergio asked, meeting my eyes in the rearview mirror. I hesitated before giving him my apartment building's location in the east side of the city, the kind of place where rent was cheap for a reason. Neither man reacted, but I saw Sergio and Vito exchange a glance. We drove in silence for several minutes before Vito spoke. "You work at Stella's Diner on Jefferson." It wasn't a question. A chill ran down my spine. "How did you know that?" Vito didn't answer. Instead, he said, "Mr. Ricci owns many businesses in this city. He notices things." The implication that Dante Ricci had noticed me before tonight seemed impossible. I was nobody. A single mother working double shifts, invisible to most of the world, especially to men like him. When we reached my apartment building, Sergio parked in a no-parking zone without concern. Both men insisted on carrying the groceries up 4 flights of stairs to my apartment. I fumbled with my keys, acutely aware of the peeling paint on my door, the flickering hallway light, and the distant sounds of arguments and blaring televisions from neighboring units. My tiny one-bedroom apartment felt even smaller with Vito and Sergio inside. They placed the bags on my kitchen counter and floor while I set Ryan's carrier down. "Mr. Ricci would like to ensure you have everything you need," Vito said, looking around my apartment with an unreadable expression. "Is there anything else?" The question hung in the air, loaded with implications I couldn't fully understand. "No," I said firmly. "This is already too much." Vito nodded, then reached into his jacket and produced a business card. Simple black with elegant silver text. Just a phone number, no name. "If you need anything at all, call this number." Mr. Ricci's direct line. I took the card reflexively, my fingers trembling slightly. Why is he doing this? He doesn't know me. "Mr. Ricci has his reasons," Vito said cryptically. "He doesn't do anything without purpose." After they left, I stood in my kitchen, surrounded by more food than I had seen in months, clutching the business card like a talisman. Ryan began to fuss, pulling me from my daze. I prepared his bottle with the premium formula Vito had insisted on buying, changing his diaper with the brand I usually couldn't afford. As Ryan drifted to sleep in my arms, I found myself drawn to the window, 4 stories down, the Bentley still idled at the curb. It remained there for hours, a silent sentinel in the night, until I finally collapsed into bed, dreams filled with blue eyes that seemed to see right through me. The next morning, I woke to Ryan's hungry cries and the lingering feeling that last night had been a dream. But the groceries remained, as did the black business card now sitting on my nightstand. I dressed for my morning shift at the diner, bundling Ryan up for the walk to my neighbor, Mrs. Garcia, who watched him during my shifts for a reduced rate. As I stepped outside my building, I froze. The Bentley was gone, but another black car, a Mercedes this time, sat in its place. The driver's window lowered as I approached, revealing a different man than either Vito or Sergio. "Ms. Winters," he said with a nod. "I've been instructed to drive you to work." My heartbeat quickened. "By Mr. Ricci?" The driver simply nodded. I hesitated, clutching Ryan closer. "I need to drop my son with my neighbor first." "Of course." The driver didn't seem surprised. Nothing about this situation seemed to surprise these men who worked for Dante Ricci. After leaving Ryan with Mrs. Garcia, who raised her eyebrows at the luxury car waiting outside but asked no questions, I allowed myself to be driven to Stella's diner. The drive that usually took me 20 minutes by bus was completed in 7. As we pulled up to the diner, I noticed a sleek motorcycle parked nearby, its rider watching the car intently. "Another one of Mr. Ricci's men?" I asked. The driver's expression didn't change. "Mr. Ricci wants to ensure your safety, Ms. Winters." "Why?" I asked, frustration finally breaking through my shock and gratitude. "Why me?" The driver met my eyes in the rearview mirror. "That's a question only Mr. Ricci can answer." I stepped out of the Mercedes, feeling the weight of unseen eyes following me as I pushed through the diner's doors. The familiar smell of coffee and grease greeted me, along with raised eyebrows from Stella herself, who stood behind the counter refilling salt shakers. "Fancy ride, Lily," she commented, her weathered face a map of curiosity. "Secret admirer?" "Just someone being kind," I mumbled, hurrying to the back to don my pale blue uniform. As I tied my apron, my fingers brushed against the hard edge of Dante Ricci's business card, which I'd transferred to my pocket. I hadn't been able to leave it behind. The morning shift passed in a blur of coffee refills and breakfast orders. Every time the bell above the door chimed, I found myself looking up, half expecting to see Dante's imposing figure. He never appeared, but the black Mercedes remained parked across the street, its driver occasionally stepping out to smoke before returning to his vigilant position. During my break, I slipped into the kitchen where my coworker, Mia, was plating an order of pancakes. "What's with the car service?" she asked, nodding toward the window. "And don't say nothing." Half the staff is talking about it." I hesitated. "I met someone last night. He helped me when I dropped my groceries." Mia's eyes widened. "And now he's sending cars for you? Must be some rich guy." Her expression darkened. "Be careful, Lily. Men like that don't give without expecting something in return." Her words echoed Vito's implication from the night before, sending a shiver down my spine. "It's nothing," I insisted, though the weight of the business card in my pocket suggested otherwise. By the end of my shift, my feet ached and my head swam with questions. The Mercedes was still waiting when I emerged, the driver opening the door before I even reached the curb. "Mrs. Garcia's apartment," I directed, sinking into the leather seat. The same motorcycle I'd noticed earlier pulled away from its parking spot, following at a distance. The driver nodded. "Mr. Ricci also asked me to give you this." He handed back a thick envelope. My fingers trembled as I opened it, revealing a stack of crisp $100 bills. My throat tightened. There had to be thousands. Clipped to the money was a note on heavy cream stationery, written in bold, elegant script. "For the boy's needs. No discussion necessary. Dr." "I can't accept this," I said, my voice barely audible. The driver didn't respond, his eyes fixed on the road as if he hadn't heard me. The unspoken message was clear. This wasn't negotiable. When we reached my building, I tucked the envelope deep into my purse, collected Ryan from Mrs. Garcia, slipping her an extra 20 from my tip money for watching him longer than usual, and retreated to my apartment. That night, after Ryan was asleep, I sat at my small kitchen table, staring at the money and the business card. Everything inside me screamed that I should return both, that nothing good could come from accepting such generosity from a stranger, especially one who moved through the world with an entourage of watchful guards. Yet another voice whispered of Ryan's future, of the opportunities this money could provide. A better apartment, proper daycare, maybe even college savings. I picked up my phone 3 times to dial the number on the card. 3 times I set it down again. On the 4th attempt, I pressed call before I could change my mind. It rang only once. Lily. His voice slid through the phone like warm honey over broken glass. Sweet, yet sharp enough to cut. My breath caught. He had known it was me, even though I'd never given him my number. Mr. Ricci. Dante, he corrected. What can I do for you, Lily Winters? The formal use of my full name sent an unexpected shiver through me. The money, I said. I can't accept it. A pause, then a soft chuckle that didn't sound amused. Yet you haven't returned it. Heat flooded my cheeks. I'm trying to. That's why I called. Are your needs met? He asked, ignoring my protest. Yours and the child's? That's not the point. It is precisely the point, he interrupted, his voice hardening. Answer the question, Lily. I swallowed, tension coiling in my stomach. Yes, more than met, but then the matter is settled. His tone softened slightly. I dislike waste, Lily. Use what I've given you for your son. Consider it an investment in his future. Why? I asked, the question that had been burning inside me all day finally escaping. Why me? Why Ryan? Silence stretched between us, punctuated only by his measured breathing. Let's discuss it in person, he finally said. Tomorrow evening? I'll send a car at 7. My pulse quickened. I can't. I have Ryan, and arrangements will be made for the child, he said, as if solving a simple logistical problem. Unless you don't trust me, the question hung in the air, loaded and dangerous. Did I trust him? This stranger who had appeared in my life like a storm, upending everything. I don't even know you, I whispered. Then tomorrow is your opportunity to remedy that. His voice had regained its smooth quality. 7 o'clock, Lily. Wear the blue dress in the back of your closet. The one you've been saving for a special occasion. My blood ran cold. How do you know about that dress? The line went dead. I sat frozen, phone clutched in my trembling hand. How could he possibly know about the dress? My one luxury, purchased before Ryan was born, before his father had cleaned out our accounts. I hadn't worn it since, saving it for a day when things might be better. Sleep eluded me that night. I checked the locks 3 times, peered through the blinds at the street below where the black car remained, its presence both threatening and strangely comforting. The next morning brought no Mercedes, but when I stepped outside with Ryan, the motorcycle was there, its rider giving me a subtle nod. The message was clear. I was still being watched. Throughout my shift at the diner, I wavered between calling the number again to cancel our meeting and curious anticipation. By the time I collected Ryan and returned home, I had decided to go through with it, if only to understand why this powerful man had taken such an interest in us. At precisely 6:30 p.m., a knock at my door startled me from my thoughts. I opened it to find Vito standing in the hallway, expression impassive. Ms. Winters? He nodded. I'm here for the child. I instinctively stepped between him and Ryan, who was playing on a blanket in the living room. What do you mean? Mr. Ricci arranged care for your son while you dined together. Vito's voice remained neutral, but his eyes softened slightly. Mrs. Elena Ricci, Mr. Ricci's mother, has offered to watch him personally. She has raised 5 children and has 3 grandchildren. The idea of sending my baby with this man to an unknown location sent panic surging through me. No, absolutely not. If Ryan can't come with me, then I'm not going. Vito's expression didn't change, but he stepped back, speaking quietly into a phone I hadn't noticed in his hand. After a brief exchange in rapid Italian, he returned his attention to me. Mr. Ricci suggests a compromise. His mother will come here to watch the child. You can meet her before you leave." Before I could respond, the distant ding of the building's elevator announced another arrival. Moments later, an elegant woman in her 60s appeared beside Vito. Her silver-streaked dark hair was swept into a perfect chignon, and she wore a simple but clearly expensive burgundy dress. Despite her refined appearance, her smile was warm as she extended her hand to me. "Lily, yes? I am Elena. Dante has told me about you and your piccolo bambino." Her accent was thicker than Dante's, her manner far more approachable. "May I come in?" Something about her kind eyes broke through my defenses. I stepped aside, allowing her into my humble apartment. She immediately spotted Ryan and her face lit up. "Ah, che bello." She knelt beside him with a grace that defied her age. Ryan, usually wary of strangers, looked up at her with curious eyes. Elena reached into her purse and produced a small wooden toy, a hand-carved car that looked both old and well-loved. "For the little one," she explained, placing it before Ryan, who immediately reached for it. "It belonged to Dante when he was small." I blinked in surprise, unable to imagine the intimidating man I'd met as a child playing with toys. Elena seemed to read my thoughts and laughed softly. "My son was a child once, difficult as that may be to believe now." She rose, studying me with the same penetrating blue eyes as Dante, though hers held warmth where his held ice. "He said you have a blue dress?" 30 minutes later, I stood before my bathroom mirror, hardly recognizing myself. The blue silk dress hugged curves I'd forgotten I had, and Elena had insisted on lending me a pair of pearl earrings and applying light makeup to my face. "Beautiful," she declared, stepping back to admire her work. "Now go. Enjoy your evening. The bambino and I will be fine." Still hesitant, I showed her where everything was. Ryan's formula, diapers, his favorite stuffed elephant. She listened patiently, though I suspected she knew more about childcare than I ever would. "Lily," she said gently, catching my hand as I fussed over Ryan one last time. "I know this is strange, but I promise you, my son is a good man. Complicated, yes. Difficult, certainly." A knowing smile touched her lips. "But good at his core. Go, talk to him. Ask your questions." A knock at the door announced Vito's return. With a final kiss to Ryan's forehead, I gathered my courage and left my son in the care of a woman I'd just met, the mother of a man who both intrigued and terrified me. The Bentley waited downstairs, but instead of Sergio, Dante himself sat in the back seat. He stepped out as I approached, his eyes traveling over me in a way that made heat rise to my cheeks. "The dress suits you," he said quietly, opening the car door. As I knew it would, I slid into the vehicle, hyper-aware of his presence as he settled beside me. He wore another impeccable suit, this one a deep navy that made his eyes appear even more intensely blue. The scent of his cologne, something woody and expensive, filled the small space between us. "Where are we going?" I asked as the car pulled away from the curb. "Somewhere private," he replied, his gaze fixed on my face, "where we can talk without interruption." The city lights blurred past the window as we left my neighborhood behind, traveling into districts I rarely visited, areas where penthouses overlooked the river and restaurants didn't display prices on their menus. "My mother likes you," he said, after several minutes of charged silence. "She's a good judge of character. She seems kind," I replied carefully. "Unlike—" I stopped myself, but his raised eyebrow prompted me to continue. "Unlike what I would expect from your mother." A smile tugged at his lips, the first genuine one I'd seen. "Because I am not kind? Are you?" I countered, finding courage from some unknown source. His eyes darkened. "When it suits me." The car turned into a private garage beneath a sleek high-rise, coming to a stop beside an elevator guarded by 2 men, who straightened immediately upon seeing Dante. They nodded respectfully as he guided me into the elevator with a light hand at the small of my back, a touch that seemed to burn through the thin silk of my dress. "My private residence," he explained as the elevator ascended swiftly. "We won't be disturbed here." The doors opened directly into a penthouse that took my breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the glittering city, minimalist furniture that probably cost more than my yearly salary, and artwork that even I could recognize as priceless. "You live alone in all this?" I asked, unable to hide my awe. Privacy is a luxury I value, he replied, leading me toward the dining room where a table had been set for two. Crystal glasses caught the light from a modern chandelier overhead, and the delicate aroma of something delicious wafted from covered dishes. He pulled out my chair, his fingers brushing against my bare shoulders as I sat. The casual touch sent electricity racing down my spine. As he took his seat across from me, his eyes never leaving mine, I realized I was in the lion's den. And the lion was watching me with unnerving intensity. "Now, Lily Winters," he said, pouring deep red wine into my glass, "I believe you had questions for me." The wine caught the light like liquid rubies as I wrapped my fingers around the delicate stem of the glass. Why me? The question that had haunted me since our first meeting finally escaped my lips. Why go to all this trouble for a stranger who dropped her groceries? Dante's gaze was steady, unreadable as he studied me across the table. "You weren't a stranger to me, Lily." A chill ran through me despite the warmth of the penthouse. What does that mean? He lifted the covers from our plates, revealing perfectly seared scallops arranged like works of art. "Eat," he said, avoiding my question. "Then we'll talk." Something in his tone, not quite a command but certainly not a request, made me comply. The food was exquisite, flavors I couldn't even identify melting on my tongue. I ate in small, careful bites, conscious of his eyes on me, tracking every movement. "You work too hard," he said suddenly. "Double shifts at the diner, taking care of the boy alone, living in that neighborhood." I set down my fork, unease crawling up my spine. "How long have you been watching me?" A hint of a smile touched his lips. 3 months, he admitted, without a trace of embarrassment. "Since you started working at Stella's, the revelation stole my breath. 3 months of unseen observation, of someone tracking my movements, my routines. I should have been terrified, should have run from this man and his surveillance. Instead, I found myself asking, why?" Dante took a sip of his wine, his movements deliberate and controlled. "Your eyes," he said finally. "The first time I saw you, serving coffee with your son strapped to your chest, you looked exhausted, beaten down. But your eyes—" He paused, searching for the right words. There was a fire there, defiance, strength. He leaned forward slightly. "Do you know how rare that is, Lily? To see someone with nothing still fighting as if they had everything to lose?" I swallowed hard, unsure how to respond to the intensity in his voice, the way he spoke as if he'd uncovered something precious in me that I couldn't see myself. "Still doesn't explain why you'd help me," I countered, trying to maintain some semblance of rational thought. "Rich men see struggling single mothers every day. They don't usually send cars or $1,000 grocery deliveries." A shadow crossed his face. "No, they don't." He set down his glass with precision. "My father was not a good man, Lily. Powerful, yes. Respected, certainly. But not good." The abrupt change of subject disoriented me. "What does your father have to do with this?" "My mother was 17 when she met him. A waitress in his favorite restaurant." Dante's eyes had turned distant, focused on something I couldn't see. "He pursued her relentlessly. When she became pregnant with me, he married her, but kept her like a bird in a gilded cage. She had every luxury but freedom." Understanding began to dawn. "You think I'm like your mother?" His attention snapped back to me, sharp and focused. "No. You're stronger than she was. She never fought back." Before I could process his words, he stood and walked to a sideboard, returning with a manila folder that he placed between us on the table. "Open it," he instructed, refilling my wine glass. With trembling fingers, I lifted the cover. Inside were photographs and documents, bank statements, a lease agreement, medical records. My throat closed as I recognized the name on them. Jason Miller, Ryan's father. "How did you get these?" I whispered, leafing through evidence of the life Jason had built after abandoning us. A new apartment in another city, a job at a financial firm, even a dating profile where he described himself as single with no baggage. "I have resources," Dante replied simply. "When I saw you that first day at the diner, I became curious. So I looked into your situation, found the boy's father." Anger flared in my chest, not at Dante, but at Jason, smiling in these photos as if he hadn't left his pregnant girlfriend destitute. Why show me this? To hurt me? To explain, Dante corrected. The man who abandoned you and your son works for Castellano Financial Group, a company owned, through several shells, by my family. The implication hit me like a physical blow. You're his boss? Indirectly? Dante's expression hardened. A man who betrays his family, who leaves his child. He stopped, composing himself. Such a man has no honor, no integrity. He cannot be trusted in business either. A cold realization washed over me. What did you do to him? Nothing he didn't deserve, Dante said, his voice suddenly gentle. But nothing you need to concern yourself with. He won't be troubling you again, but he will be providing for his son, as he should have from the beginning. I stared at the folder, emotions warring inside me. Relief that Ryan would have support, confusion about Dante's involvement, fear of what nothing he didn't deserve might mean in the vocabulary of a man like Dante Ricci. I don't understand, I admitted. You did all this, investigated him, me, arranged child support, before you even spoke to me? Why not just introduce yourself at the diner? Dante came around the table, his movements fluid and predatory. He took the seat beside me rather than across, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. Would you have accepted my help if I'd simply approached you? Or would you have seen a wealthy man offering assistance and assumed the worst about his intentions? I couldn't deny it. I would have rejected any offer from him, would have seen it as charity at best, something more sinister at worst. You didn't give me a choice, I pointed out, trying to ignore how his proximity made my pulse quicken. The groceries, the car service, this dinner, you decided all of it. Yes. No apology, no justification, just that single word, as if my observation merely confirmed what he already knew. And what happens now? I asked, setting down my wine glass to hide the trembling of my fingers. More surveillance? More uninvited interventions in my life? His hand covered mine on the table, warm and unexpectedly gentle. What happens now is your choice, Lily. For the first time since we met. The touch of his skin against mine sent sparks racing up my arm. I should have pulled away, but found myself frozen, captivated by the intensity of his gaze. What are my options? My voice emerged as barely more than a whisper. Option 1, he said, his thumb tracing small circles on my wrist that made it difficult to concentrate. You leave here tonight, return to your son, and continue your life. The child support payments will arrive monthly. The car service will remain available to you, though you need never use it. My men will ensure your neighborhood becomes safer, though you'll never see them. Your life improves, but remains your own. The offer was generous beyond imagining, financial security without obligation. Yet the thought of returning to my lonely existence after glimpsing his world left an unexpected hollowness in my chest. And option 2? I asked, my mouth suddenly dry. Dante's eyes darkened. You allow me into your life. Not just as a benefactor, but as, he hesitated, searching for the right word, as someone who cares for you and your son's well-being, someone who wants to see you thrive, not merely survive. Someone who watches from afar? I challenged, finding a spark of the defiance he claimed to admire. A smile touched his lips, genuine this time, transforming his severe features into something devastatingly handsome. No. Someone present. Someone involved. The implication hung in the air between us, charged with possibilities I hardly dared consider. Why would you want that? You could have any woman. Women without the complications I bring. I don't want any woman, he said simply. I want you. The directness of his statement stole my breath. You don't even know me. I know enough. His hand tightened slightly around mine. I know you work until your feet bleed rather than accept handouts. I know you read to your son every night, even when you're exhausted. I know you save the crusts from your sandwiches at the diner because you can't bear waste. Each observation was like a key unlocking parts of myself I hadn't realized anyone had noticed. That's not knowing me, I whispered. That's watching me. Then let me know you, Lily Winters. His voice had dropped to a low, hypnotic cadence. Let me learn what makes you smile, what brings you joy, what you dream of in those quiet moments when you think no one sees. Warning bells clamored in my mind, reminding me that I sat in the home of a man who admitted to having me followed, who spoke of honor and consequences in the same breath, whose very name caused hardened men to snap to attention. Yet beneath the fear lay something else. A dangerous, exhilarating curiosity about what life might be like in Dante Ricci's orbit. "And what would I be to you?" I asked, forcing myself to meet his gaze. "A project? A possession?" Something flashed in his eyes, approval, perhaps, at my directness. "Neither. You would be," he broke off, then continued with careful precision. "You would be someone I protect, someone I provide for, someone under my care. Not an equal," I noted. "Few people are my equal, Lily," he said without arrogance, merely stating what he believed to be fact. "But you would be respected, valued." I stood abruptly, needing distance to clear my head from the intoxicating combination of his proximity, his words, and the wine warming my veins. I walked to the wall of windows, gazing out at the glittering city below. "I hardly know you," I said to my reflection in the glass. "You could be dangerous." I heard him rise, felt him approach until he stood behind me, close enough that I could feel his breath stir the hair at the nape of my neck. "I am dangerous," he admitted, his reflection meeting mine in the window, "but never to you, never to your son. Why should I believe that? Because I give you my word." He spoke as if this settled the matter completely. "And in my world, Lily, a man's word is the only true currency." I turned to face him, suddenly aware of how close we stood, of how his presence seemed to fill the space around me, making it difficult to breathe, to think. "I need time," I said finally. "This is overwhelming." "Of course." He stepped back, giving me space without seeming to retreat. "Take all the time you need." Relief washed through me, followed quickly by confusion when I caught the flash of something like disappointment in his eyes. Did he expect me to agree immediately? To fall into his arms after one dinner, one conversation? "I should get back to Ryan," I said, glancing at the delicate watch I'd borrowed from my neighbor for the occasion. "Of course," he repeated, guiding me back toward the elevator with that same light touch at the small of my back. "Vito will drive you." The descent to the garage was silent, tension crackling between us like electricity. When the doors opened, Vito stood waiting beside the Bentley, expression impassive as always. Dante walked me to the car, opening the door himself rather than allowing Vito to do it. Before I could slide inside, he caught my hand, raising it to his lips in a gesture that seemed both old-fashioned and intensely intimate. "Consider what I've said, Lily," he murmured against my skin. "You deserve more than struggling alone." The drive back to my apartment passed in a blur of conflicting emotions. By the time Vito escorted me to my door, I had convinced myself that I would decline Dante's offer. It was too much, too fast, too dangerous. Then I opened my door to find Elena seated on my secondhand couch, Ryan sleeping peacefully in her arms. She looked up with a warm smile that reminded me so much of the one Dante had briefly revealed. "He's a perfect angel," she whispered, her eyes soft with affection as she gazed down at my son. "So strong, like his mama." Something twisted in my chest at the sight. This elegant woman holding my child with such genuine tenderness, as if he were precious to her already. How long had it been since anyone but me had looked at Ryan that way? Since anyone had seen him as something other than a burden, a complication? "Thank you for watching him," I managed, slipping off the borrowed earrings and placing them on the coffee table. "You didn't have to stay this late." "It was my pleasure." She rose with practiced grace, transferring Ryan to my arms without waking him. He reminds me of Dante at this age. So serious, watching everything. I couldn't help but smile at the image of Dante as a solemn baby, studying the world with those penetrating blue eyes. Elena touched my cheek gently. "My son is complicated, Lily. His world is not easy, but he sees something in you, something special, something worth protecting." She picked up her purse, preparing to leave. "Whatever you decide, remember that the Ricci family takes care of its own, always." After she left, I stood in my suddenly quiet apartment, Ryan's warm weight against my chest, Elena's words echoing in my mind. The Ricci family takes care of its own. Was that what Dante was offering? Not just assistance or even companionship, but belonging? The chance to be part of something larger than myself? I placed Ryan in his crib, changed out of the blue dress, and sat on the edge of my bed, turning Dante's business card over and over in my fingers. The simplicity of it, just a phone number, no name or title, seemed at odds with the complexity of the man himself. A man who had watched me for months. A man who had confronted my son's father without my knowledge or permission. A man who commanded respect with his mere presence. A man who looked at me as if I were something precious. I reached for my phone before I could change my mind, dialing the number I'd already memorized. It rang once. Lily. His voice, even through the phone, sent a shiver down my spine. Have you decided? I took a deep breath, the card clutched in my free hand like a talisman. Yes, I said softly. I choose option 2. The silence that followed seemed to stretch forever, filled with possibilities both terrifying and exhilarating. Good, he finally replied, the single word laden with satisfaction. Very good. The week that followed passed in a whirlwind of changes. The morning after our dinner, a team of security experts arrived at my apartment building to install a state-of-the-art system in my unit. By afternoon, workers were replacing my worn furniture with pieces that somehow matched my taste exactly, comfortable yet elegant, nothing flashy or ostentatious. Mr. Ricci was very specific, explained the decorator, a petite woman with a French accent who introduced herself simply as Claudette, comfortable for the baby, practical for you, but quality everything. I watched, overwhelmed, as my shabby apartment transformed. The ancient refrigerator was replaced with a sleek stainless steel model. The lumpy mattress where Ryan and I slept gave way to a plush queen-size bed with a beautiful wooden crib beside it. Even the bathroom received an upgrade, with heated tiles and fluffy towels that felt like clouds. Through it all, Dante himself remained absent, though his presence was felt in every careful selection, every considerate detail. A bookshelf appeared, filled with the classics I'd once mentioned loving in college. Ryan's crib came with a mobile of stars and planets. How had Dante known my son was fascinated by the night sky? Each night, precisely at 9, my phone would ring. Tell me about your day, Dante would say, his voice a warm caress in the darkness of my new bedroom. And I would, recounting small moments with Ryan, interactions at the diner, my thoughts on books I was reading from the new shelf. He listened with an intensity that made me feel seen in a way I never had before. He asked questions that showed he remembered every detail I shared, building a map of my life, my mind, my heart. On the 5th night, as our call drew to a close, I gathered my courage. When will I see you again? His chuckle sent warmth spreading through me. I've been giving you space, Lily. Time to adjust. I'm adjusted, I said, surprising myself with my boldness. I'd like to see you. Tomorrow, then, he replied, satisfaction evident in his tone. I'll come for you after your shift. There's someone I want you to meet. Curiosity burned in me. Who? My family, he said simply. Sunday dinner is a tradition. My mother has been asking when she'll see you and Ryan again. Fear and excitement tangled in my chest. Meeting his family meant stepping further into his world, a world I still understood so little about. Will I fit in? I asked, hating the vulnerability in my voice. You'll be perfect, he assured me. Just be yourself. That's who they want to meet. After we hung up, I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, wondering what I'd gotten myself into. Dating a normal man would be complicated enough as a single mother, but Dante Ricci was far from normal, with his drivers and security teams, his penthouse and business empire. And there was still the question of exactly what that empire entailed. I wasn't naive. The way people responded to him, the power he wielded, the casual mention of family businesses. It all pointed to connections I wasn't sure I wanted to understand. The next day at work, I found myself watching the clock, anticipation and anxiety building with each passing hour. Mia caught me checking my reflection in the chrome of the coffee machine for the 3rd time. Hot date? She teased, bumping my hip with hers as she reached for a mug. "Something like that," I admitted, feeling my cheeks flush. Her smile faded slightly. "It's him, isn't it? The guy with the cars and the money. I've seen his men around, watching the diner." I nodded, unable to deny it. Mia leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Lily, I've heard things. About the Ricci family." A chill ran through me despite the heat of the kitchen. "What things?" She glanced around nervously. "They're connected, you know? Old money, old power, not all of it clean." She squeezed my arm. "Just be careful, okay? Men like that, they own things. People." Before I could respond, the bell above the door chimed. Instead of Vito or Sergio, Dante himself stood in the entrance, commanding the attention of every person in the diner without saying a word. He wore a charcoal suit that fit him perfectly. No tie. The top buttons of his crisp white shirt undone just enough to hint at the strong column of his throat. My heart stuttered in my chest as his eyes found mine instantly, as if drawn by some magnetic force. The hint of a smile touched his lips. A private gesture meant only for me. "Your guy's here," Mia whispered, giving me a gentle push. "Go. But remember what I said." I untied my apron with trembling fingers, suddenly conscious of my worn uniform, the coffee stain on my sleeve, my hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Dante didn't seem to notice any of it as I approached. His gaze remained fixed on my face, intense and appreciative. "Lily," he said, my name on his lips sounding like something precious. "Ready to go?" I nodded, acutely aware of the eyes following us as we left the diner, of Stella's raised eyebrow and knowing smile, of Mia's worried frown. The Bentley waited outside, but Dante surprised me by opening the passenger door of a sleek black Ferrari parked behind it. "Just us today," he explained, helping me into the low-slung seat. "I thought you might enjoy the drive." The interior smelled of expensive leather and his cologne. As he slid into the driver's seat beside me, the space suddenly felt intimate, charged with an electricity I couldn't ignore. "I've never been in a car like this," I admitted, as the engine purred to life. He smiled, a real smile that transformed his severe features into something breathtaking. "There will be many firsts for us, Lily." The promise in his words sent a shiver down my spine. He drove with the same confident precision with which he seemed to do everything, navigating through the city traffic before hitting the coastal highway that wound along the shore. "Where are we going?" I asked, watching the scenery blur past. "My family home," he replied, one hand resting casually on the steering wheel, the other reaching across to take mine. Outside the city, the casual touch of his fingers interlaced with mine felt more intimate than any kiss. I found myself studying his profile as he drove, the strong line of his jaw, now relaxed in a way I hadn't seen before, the slight curl of his hair at the nape of his neck, the tiny scar near his temple that I hadn't noticed during our dinner. "You're staring," he observed, glancing at me with amusement. "I'm trying to figure you out," I admitted. He laughed softly. "And your conclusion so far?" I hesitated, then decided on honesty. "You're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Someone colder, more intimidating." His thumb traced patterns on my palm that made it difficult to concentrate. "I can be both of those things when necessary," he said quietly, "but not with you. Never with you." After about 40 minutes, we turned onto a private drive lined with ancient oak trees. At the end stood a sprawling Mediterranean-style villa, warm terracotta walls glowing in the late afternoon sun, surrounded by meticulously landscaped gardens. "This is where you grew up?" I asked, awed by the beauty and obvious wealth surrounding us. Dante nodded, helping me from the car. The Ricci family home for 3 generations. Security was visible but discreet. Men stationed at various points around the property acknowledged Dante with respectful nods as he guided me toward the house, his hand at the small of my back in what was becoming a familiar gesture. The front door opened before we reached it, revealing Elena Ricci with a warm smile that immediately put me at ease. "Lily, and where is the little one?" she asked, embracing me as if we were old friends. "Mrs. Garcia is watching him," I explained. I thought this first meeting might be easier without a baby in the mix. Next time, you bring him, she insisted, linking her arm through mine and leading me into a soaring entryway. And call me Elena, please. Mrs. Ricci makes me feel ancient. The interior of the villa was even more impressive than the exterior. Vaulted ceilings, marble floors, artwork that belonged in museums. Yet it felt lived in, comfortable in a way Dante's sleek penthouse did not. Family photos lined the hallways, fresh flowers brightened every room, and the delicious aroma of home cooking permeated the air. Elena led us to a sunlit terrace overlooking the ocean, where several people were already gathered. A distinguished older man with salt and pepper hair rose as we approached, his resemblance to Dante unmistakable, despite the decades between them. Papa, this is Lily. Elena introduced me. Lily, my husband, Antonio. Antonio Ricci took my hand between both of his, studying me with the same penetrating gaze as his son. So you're the one who has captured my son's attention, he said, his accent thicker than Dante's. Welcome to our home. One by one, I was introduced to the rest of the family, Dante's younger sister Sofia and her husband Marco, his older brother Salvatore with his wife Isabella and their twin boys, and his youngest brother Gabriel, who greeted me with a teasing smile and a whispered, "Finally, someone who might make my brother smile." Throughout the introductions, Dante remained close, his hand never far from mine, his eyes tracking my reactions. I could feel his tension, his concern about how I would respond to his family, and they to me. But my worries about fitting in quickly dissolved as Elena insisted I help her in the kitchen, where she promptly handed me a glass of wine and put me to work chopping herbs. Sofia joined us, regaling me with embarrassing stories from Dante's childhood that had me laughing until tears formed. He was always so serious, Sofia confided, casting a glance toward the terrace where Dante stood with his father and brothers, deep in conversation. Even as a boy, taking responsibility for everything and everyone. He still is, Elena agreed, stirring a pot of sauce that smelled divine. But when he speaks of you, Lily, something changes, a lightness I haven't seen in him for many years. I flushed, unsure how to respond to the implication that I had somehow affected this powerful, controlled man. We hardly know each other, I demurred. Sometimes time is irrelevant, Elena said with the certainty of someone who had lived enough to know. When it's right, it's right. Dinner was served at a long table beneath a pergola draped with fairy lights, the ocean providing a spectacular backdrop. Course after course of traditional Italian cuisine appeared, each more delicious than the last. Wine flowed freely, conversation moved seamlessly between English and Italian, and laughter echoed under the stars. I found myself seated between Dante and his father, Antonio asking thoughtful questions about my life, my interests, my hopes for Ryan's future. There was no judgment in his inquiries, only genuine curiosity, and increasingly approval. You've had a difficult path, he observed as dessert was served. Yet you've maintained your strength, your dignity. These are qualities the Ricci family admires. Beside me, Dante's hand found mine under the table, squeezing gently. The simple gesture conveyed volumes, pride, reassurance, possession. As the evening progressed, the family gradually dispersed. The twins fell asleep on a nearby sofa, Salvatore and Isabella excusing themselves to take them home, Gabriel departing for what Sofia teasingly called his nightlife, Marco and Sofia lingering over digestives with Antonio, while Elena insisted on sending leftovers home with us. Eventually, Dante and I found ourselves alone on a lower terrace, the sound of waves crashing against the cliffs below us, the moon casting silver light across the water. He stood behind me, arms wrapped around my waist, my back against his chest. "They love you," he murmured against my hair, "especially my mother." I leaned into his embrace, feeling safer than I had in years. "They're wonderful." Nothing like what I expected. "What did you expect?" he asked, echoing our earlier conversation in the car. I hesitated, then decided on honesty again. Something more intimidating, less warm. His quiet chuckle rumbled against my back. "We're Italian, Lily. Family is everything to us." The word hung in the air between us, loaded with implication. Family. Was that what he was offering? A place for Ryan and me in this close-knit clan of Ricci's? "Dante," I began, turning in his arms to face him. "What exactly is your business? Your family's business?" His expression remained open, but I sensed him choosing his words carefully. We have interests in many sectors: real estate, import-export, financial services, private security. Legitimate businesses? I pressed, remembering Mia's warnings, the whispers at the diner. His eyes held mine, unwavering. Would it matter if they weren't? If I told you there were aspects of my world that operated in gray areas? I swallowed hard, recognizing the crossroads before me. This was my chance to walk away, to return to my struggling but uncomplicated life, yet standing here in his arms, with the memory of his family's warmth still fresh. I couldn't bring myself to retreat. It would matter, I admitted softly, but it wouldn't change how I feel. Something shifted in his expression. A tension I hadn't realized he was carrying melted away. His hand came up to cup my cheek, thumb brushing across my lower lip in a touch so gentle it made my heart ache. My family has power in this city, he said carefully. Power built over generations, not all of it through means society would approve of. I won't lie to you about that. I nodded, appreciating his honesty even as it confirmed my suspicions. And now? The businesses you run? Legitimate, he assured me. My father began the transition years ago. I've completed it. The Ricci Empire now operates within the law, though we still maintain certain connections from the old days. The men who watch over me, the way people react when they hear your name. A hint of a smile touched his lips. Reputation has value, Lily. I don't flaunt our history, but I don't deny the advantages it provides. I thought of the security men stationed around his family home, the way the restaurant manager had scrambled to please Vito when he mentioned Dante's name, the swift removal of Jason from my life. And what happens to people who cross you? I asked, needing to know, though part of me feared the answer. His expression darkened. Justice happens, not always through courts or police, but justice nonetheless. Ryan's father is alive and well, Dante interrupted, understanding my concern, working at a much less prestigious job in another state, with court-ordered payments deducted directly from his salary. He faced consequences for his actions, but nothing permanent. Relief washed through me. Whatever else Dante might be, he wasn't the monster my imagination had conjured, or at least, not with those who hadn't truly harmed his family. What about me? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. What happens if I cross you? Pain flashed in his eyes. You could never cross me, Lily, and I would never harm you, not for any reason, not for any price. His hands framed my face with exquisite tenderness. You and Ryan are under my protection now. That means something different in my world than it might in yours. What does it mean? It means you're mine to care for, mine to protect, mine to... He hesitated, then continued with a fierce intensity that stole my breath. Mine to love, if you'll allow it. The word hung between us, unexpected and powerful. Love. Could this intense, dangerous man truly love someone like me, a struggling single mother he barely knew? And more importantly, could I love him back, knowing what I now knew about his world? As if reading my thoughts, he continued softly, I don't expect you to love me yet, Lily. I know this has been fast, overwhelming perhaps, but I want the chance to earn your trust, your affection, eventually your heart. The raw honesty in his voice undid me. Without stopping to think, I rose on tiptoes and pressed my lips to his. For a heartbeat, he remained still, as if shocked by my boldness. Then his arms wrapped around me, pulling me against him as he deepened the kiss with a hunger that matched my own. His lips were firm, yet gentle. His hands splayed across my back, holding me as if I might vanish if he let go. When we finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, his eyes had darkened to midnight blue, burning with an intensity that sent heat pooling low in my belly. Lily, he whispered, my name a prayer on his lips. Be sure. Be very sure this is what you want. Because once you're truly mine, I won't let you go. The possessiveness in his words should have frightened me. Instead, it ignited something primal within me, a longing to be claimed, to belong to someone who would fight for me, protect me, treasure me. I'm sure, I whispered back, and saw something wild and beautiful break free in his expression. This time when he kissed me, All gentleness was gone, replaced by passionate need. His hands tangled in my hair, angling my head to deepen the kiss further. I clutched at his shoulders, lost in the sensation of being completely enveloped by him, his scent, his taste, his strength surrounding me. A discreet cough from the doorway broke the spell. We turned to see Vito standing there, expression carefully neutral. "Sir, the car is ready whenever you and Ms. Winters wish to depart." Dante nodded, keeping one arm firmly around my waist. "We'll leave shortly, Vito. Thank you." After Vito disappeared, Dante pressed his forehead against mine, our breathing gradually slowing. "I should take you home," he said, though his tone suggested it was the last thing he wanted. "You need to get back to Ryan." The mention of my son brought reality crashing back. "Yes," I agreed reluctantly. "Mrs. Garcia can't stay too late." As we walked back through the house to say our goodbyes, Elena caught me in a warm embrace. "You'll come again," she said. Not a question, but a statement of fact. "And bring the little one next time. Sunday lunches are family tradition, family." The word resonated through me as we drove back toward the city, Dante's hand resting on mine. Was I really considering bringing Ryan into this world? Allowing him to grow up surrounded by the complicated legacy of the Ricci name? "You're thinking too hard," Dante observed, glancing at me as we approached the city limits. "Just processing," I admitted. "This is a lot to take in." He squeezed my hand gently. "One day at a time, Lily. We have all the time in the world." When we reached my apartment building, he insisted on coming upstairs with me. Mrs. Garcia, a knowing smile on her face, accepted his generous payment for the extra hours without comment, merely whispering to me, "He's handsome, your new friend, and he looks at you like you hung the moon." After she left, Dante moved through my upgraded apartment with the satisfaction of someone inspecting his work. "Better," he murmured, noting the new security panel by the door, the comfortable furniture, the stocked refrigerator. "But not good enough. Not for you and Ryan." I checked on my sleeping son, my heart melting at the sight of him clutching the wooden car Elena had given him. When I returned to the living room, I found Dante studying the few photos I had displayed, mostly of Ryan, one of my parents who had died in a car accident during my senior year of college, leaving me alone in the world. "He looks like you," Dante said softly, tracing Ryan's face in one of the pictures. "Your eyes, your determination. Everyone says he looks like his father," I replied, surprised. Dante shook his head. "No. He's yours in all the ways that matter." He turned to me, his expression suddenly serious. "I want to take care of both of you, Lily. Properly." Something in his tone set my pulse racing. "What does that mean?" He crossed to where I stood, taking both my hands in his. "Move in with me. You and Ryan. Not to the penthouse. It's not suitable for a child. I have a house in the Westwood neighborhood. Space, gardens, security, a proper home." The offer stole my breath. "Dante, we've known each other for what? A week? That's too fast." "Is it?" he challenged gently. "When something is right, why wait? You said yourself that you're sure about us. About being together, yes," I clarified. "Not about moving in immediately. What would people think?" A slight frown creased his brow. "Does that matter to you? What others think?" I thought about it honestly. Not for myself, but for Ryan. I don't want him growing up with people whispering about his mother. Understanding softened Dante's expression. "Then we'll do this properly, in stages." He brushed a strand of hair from my face. "I'll court you, Lily Winters, like a gentleman. Dinners, outings with Ryan, family Sundays. We'll let the world see that this isn't some passing fancy." Relief washed through me. "Thank you for understanding." His smile was gentle. "I want you comfortable, not pressured. But know this." His voice dropped to a husky whisper. "You and Ryan are already mine in my heart. The rest is just formality." The possessive declaration sent warmth spiraling through me. He sealed it with a kiss that started gentle, but quickly blazed into something more urgent. His hands traced the curve of my waist, pulling me against him until I could feel every hard plane of his body. When he finally pulled back, his eyes had darkened with desire. "I should go," he said, voice rough with restraint. Before I forget my promises about doing this properly, I walked him to the door, already missing his presence, though he hadn't yet left. "When will I see you again?" "Tomorrow," he promised, pressing a final kiss to my lips. "I'll pick you up after your shift. We'll take Ryan to the park, the private one my family maintains. No photographers, no strangers, just us." After he left, I leaned against the closed door, heart racing, mind whirling with everything that had happened. In the span of a week, my world had completely transformed. From struggling single mother to... what? The girlfriend of Dante Ricci? It seemed surreal, like a fairy tale I couldn't quite believe. Yet the upgraded apartment around me was real. The taste of his kiss lingered on my lips. And for the first time in years, I felt something I'd almost forgotten. Hope. The months that followed unfolded like a dream. True to his word, Dante courted me with old-fashioned dedication. Dinners at exclusive restaurants where the staff greeted him by name. Weekend outings to his family's private beach house. Sunday lunches that became a sacred tradition. Ryan increasingly doted on by the entire Ricci clan. Elena taught me to make authentic Italian dishes, her gentle guidance never making me feel less than. Sophia became the sister I'd never had, taking me shopping at boutiques I'd previously only walked past, insisting that I needed a wardrobe worthy of a Ricci woman. Throughout it all, Dante remained attentive, passionate, and unfailingly patient. When I decided to quit the diner to focus on finishing the nursing degree I'd abandoned when I became pregnant, he supported me without question, arranging for top tutors and a flexible schedule that allowed me to study while still being present for Ryan. Gradually, I gained insight into Dante's world. I learned that while his businesses were legitimate, his power extended far beyond normal corporate influence. City officials sought his approval for major projects. Police chiefs dined at his table. Even the mayor called him for advice during crises. "It's complicated," he explained one night as we sat on the terrace of his Westwood house, the home he still hoped we would share. "My grandfather built his empire through fear. My father maintained it through strategic alliances. I'm transforming it through legitimate power and influence. And the old ways?" I asked cautiously. "The connections your father mentioned?" Dante's expression remained calm. "Some traditions have value, Lily. Protection, loyalty, justice. The methods change, but the principles remain. I came to understand that the Ricci Empire operated on a code of honor that transcended conventional morality. Dante protected those under his care with fierce dedication. He rewarded loyalty generously, and those who betrayed his trust faced consequences, though I never witnessed the darker aspects of that justice firsthand. As summer turned to fall, then winter, our lives became increasingly intertwined. Ryan, now approaching his first birthday, lit up whenever Dante entered the room, reaching for him with complete trust. I watched in wonder as this powerful, dangerous man would soften completely in the presence of my son, getting down on the floor to build block towers, reading the same storybooks over and over with infinite patience. On Christmas Eve, 6 months after our first meeting at the grocery store, Dante invited my neighbor Mrs. Garcia to watch Ryan at his Westwood home while he took me for a drive. "Where are we going?" I asked as he guided the Ferrari along the coastal highway, the same route we'd taken to his family home that first Sunday. "You'll see," he replied with an enigmatic smile. Instead of turning toward the Ricci villa, he continued along a private road that wound up into the hills overlooking the ocean. At the crest sat a spectacular Mediterranean-style home, warm lights glowing from every window, the gardens tastefully decorated with subtle holiday lights. "Whose house is this?" I asked as he parked in the circular driveway. "Ours," he said simply. "If you want it to be." My heart skipped a beat as he led me through the front door into a soaring entryway, decorated with a magnificent Christmas tree. The home was fully furnished in a style that somehow perfectly blended his tastes with mine, elegant but comfortable, luxurious yet practical for a young child. Room after room revealed thoughtful details. A state-of-the-art kitchen, since I'd discovered a love of cooking under Elena's tutelage, a nursery for Ryan painted with a mural of the night sky he loved, a home office where I could study, a master suite with views of the ocean that took my breath away. In the center of the master bedroom, Dante turned to me, his expression more vulnerable than I'd ever seen it. "I promised to court you properly, Lily, to give you time, to let the world see that what we have is real." He took my hands in his. 6 months have passed, 6 months of falling more deeply in love with you and Ryan every day. My heart thundered in my chest as he lowered himself to one knee, producing a velvet box from his pocket. I know what I am, he said softly. I know the complications my name brings. But I also know that I love you with everything I am. You've brought light back into my life. He opened the box to reveal a stunning emerald-cut diamond. Lily Winters, will you marry me? Will you and Ryan become Ricci's in name as well as in my heart? Tears blurred my vision as I gazed down at this powerful man kneeling before me, offering me not just a ring but a future, a family, a place to belong. Yes, I whispered, my voice breaking with emotion. Yes, Dante. As he slid the ring onto my finger, then rose to capture my lips in a kiss that promised forever, I knew that my life had changed irrevocably that rainy evening at Marino's grocery. What had seemed like the worst moment, dropping my precious groceries, exposing my vulnerability to the world, had actually been the beginning of something beautiful. 6 months ago, I had been a struggling single mother, invisible to most of the world. Now, I was the future Mrs. Ricci, loved fiercely by a man who commanded respect throughout the city, embraced by a family who had welcomed me and my son without hesitation. We'll live here? I asked when we finally broke apart, my hand caressing his cheek. If you like it, he confirmed. Though the penthouse and the family villa are always available to us. I looked around at the beautiful home he had created for us, for our family. It's perfect. Later that night, after returning to the Westwood house where Ryan slept peacefully, unaware of how his world had just changed, Dante and I stood on the balcony, champagne in hand. His family would arrive in the morning for Christmas celebrations, eager to hear our news, though Elena had surely guessed it already. Any regrets? He asked, his arm around my waist, my head resting on his shoulder. I thought about the path that had led me here, the struggles, the fears, the moment of desperation in the rain that had brought this extraordinary man into my life. Not one, I said, tilting my face up to his. Every step brought me to you, his smile, the real one, warm and open, that he showed only to me and Ryan, lit up his face. And to think it all began with spilled groceries. As he lowered his lips to mine, sealing our future with a kiss that held both tenderness and passion, I silently thanked the universe for that rainy evening, for my worn sneaker catching on uneven pavement, for the chance encounter that had changed everything. In Dante's arms, I had found not just security, but a love powerful enough to transform both our